The Battle of Maiwand on 27 July 1880 was one of the principal battles of the Second Anglo-Afghan War. Under the leadership of Ayub Khan, the Afghans defeated 2 brigades of British and Indian troops under Brigadier General George Burroughs, though at a high price. Between 2,050 and 2,750 Afghan warriors were killed, and probably about 1,500 wounded. British and Indian forces suffered 969 soldiers killed and 177 wounded. Prelude. Before the battle, the campaign had gone well for the British. They had defeated Afghan tribesmen at Ali Masjid, Piwa Kotal, Kabul, and Ahmed Keel, and they had occupied numerous towns and villages, including Kandahar, Dukka, and Jalalabad. Ayub Khan, Sher Ali's younger son, who had been holding Herat during the British operations at Kabul and Kandahar, set out towards Kandahar with a small army in June 1880, and a brigade under Brigadier General Burroughs was detached from Kandahar to oppose him. Burroughs' brigade, some 2,500 strong with about 500 British troops including a battery of 9-pounder cannons, advanced to Helmand, opposite Jeresh, to oppose Ayub Khan, but was there deserted by the levies of Sher Ali. The British appointed Huali of Kandahar. The levies were defeated and 4 smoothbore 6-pounder guns and 2 smoothbore 12-pounder howitzers captured. He remained there a week, during which time the captured guns were added to his force with additional gunners drawn from the British infantry. The battle. On the afternoon of 26 July, information was received that the Afghan force was making for the Maiwand Pass a few miles away. Burroughs decided to move early the following day to break up the Afghan advance guard. At about 10 a.m. horsemen were seen and engaged, and the brigade started to deploy for battle. Burroughs was not aware that it was Ayub's main force. The Afghans numbered 25,000 including Afghan regular troops and 5 batteries of artillery, including some very modern Armstrong guns. The Afghan guns gradually came into action and a 3-hour artillery duel ensued at an opening range of about 1,700 yards, during which the British captured smoothbore guns on the left, expended their ammunition, and withdrew to replenish it. This enabled the Afghans to force the left-hand battalion back. The left flank, comprising Indian infantry regiments, gave way and rolled in a great wave to the right. The 66th Regiment, the backbone of defense, were swept away by the pressure of the Ghazi attack. E Battery, B Brigade, Royal Horse Artillery and a half company of Bombay sappers and miners under Lieutenant Henn stood fast, covering the retreat of the entire British brigade. E. B. Ra kept firing until the last moment, 2 sections limbering up when the Afghans were 15 yards away, but the 3rd section was overrun. McLean was captured and held as a prisoner in Kandahar, where his body was found at Ayub Khan's tent during the British attack on 1 September, apparently murdered to prevent his liberation. The British guns captured during the action were also recovered at Kandahar. E. B. Ra came into action again some 400 yards back. The sappers and miners retreated as the guns withdrew. Henn and 14 of his men afterwards joined some remnants of the 66th Foot and Bombay Grenadiers in a small enclosure at a garden in a place called Kig, where a determined last stand was made. Though the Afghans shot them down one by one, they fired steadily until only 11 of their number were left, and the survivors then charged out into the masses of the enemy and perished. Henn was the only officer in that band and he led the final charge. The retreat to Kandahar. Word of the disaster reached Kandahar the following day and a relief force was dispatched. This met the retreating force at Kokharan. The British were routed, but managed a withdrawal due to their own efforts and the apathy of the Afghans. Of the 2,476 British troops engaged, the British and Indian force lost 21 officers and 948 soldiers killed, and 8 officers and 169 men were wounded. The Grenadiers lost 64% of their strength and the 66th lost 62%, including 12 officers. Of those present, the cavalry losses were much smaller. British and Indian regimental casualties were: 1st Infantry Brigade, 66th Regiment of Foot, 286 dead, 32 wounded. 1st Bombay Native Infantry, 366 dead, 61 wounded. 30th Bombay Native Infantry, 241 dead, 32 wounded. Bombay Sappers and Miners, 16 dead, 6 wounded. 1st Cavalry Brigade E Battery, B Brigade, Royal Horse Artillery, 19 dead, 16 wounded. 3rd Bombay Light Cavalry, 27 dead, 18 wounded. 3rd Sindh Horse, 15 dead, 1 wounded. One estimate of Afghan casualties is 3,000, reflecting the desperate nature of much of the fighting, although other sources give 1,500 Afghans and up to 4,000 Ghazis killed. Awards for bravery. 2 Victoria Crosses were awarded for acts of valor performed during the battle and during the retreat to Kandahar. Both medals went to members of E.B. Battery, RA. One was awarded to Sergeant Patrick Mullen for attempting to save the life of a wounded colleague during the withdrawal of their battery from the field. The other went to Gunner James Collis, who during the retreat to Kandahar drew the attention of enemy fire upon himself instead of upon wounded colleagues. Aftermath. The battle dampened morale for the British side, but was also partly a disappointment for Ayub Khan, governor of Herat and commander of the Afghans in this battle, because he had lost so many men to gain a small advantage. Ayub Khan did manage to shut the British up in Kandahar, resulting in General Frederick Roberts's famous 314-mile relief march from Kabul to Kandahar in August 1880. The resulting Battle of Kandahar on 1 September was a decisive victory for the British. The loss of the Queen's Colour and regimental colour of the 66th Regiment of Foot at the Battle of Maiwand, following so soon upon the loss of the colours of the 1st 24th Regiment at the Battle of Isandlwana during the Anglo-Zulu War, resulted in colours no longer being taken on active service. Maiwand in poetry, art, and fiction. Poetry. Rudyard Kipling, who had researched this battle in 1892, included this small yet dramatic poem about the action at Maiwand in his Barrett Room Bollards collection. That day extract, there was 30 dead and wounded on the ground we wouldn't keep. No, there wasn't more than 20 when the front began to go, but, Christ. Along the line flight they cut us up like sheep, and that was all we gained by doing so. I eared the knives beyond me, but I dursn't face my man, nor I don't know where I went to, 'cause I didn't, all to see. Till I eared a beggar squealin', out for quarterers, he ran, and I thought I knew the voice and it was me. We was ideen under bedsteads more than a march away, we was lyin' up like rabbits all about the countryside, and the Major cursed his maker, 'cause he lived to see that day, and the Colonel broke his sword across and cried. Poems of the victory at Maiwand have passed into Pashtun and Afghan folklore. As Afghan legend would have it, the battle created an unlikely hero in the shape of an Afghan woman called Malalai, who on seeing the Afghan forces falter, used her veil as a stand-in and encouraged the men by shouting out, "Young love, if you do not fall in the Battle of Maiwand, by God someone is saving you as a token of shame." She also spoke the following lande: "With a drop of my sweetheart's blood, shed in defense of the motherland, will I put a beauty spot on my forehead, such as would put to shame the rose in the garden." The battle was the subject of several paintings and was covered extensively in the illustrated press. Frank Feller, a Swiss artist domiciled in England, painted the last 11 at Maiwand in 1882, depicting a small group of men from the 66th Regiment making a last stand. The events surrounding E.B. Battery Royal Horse Artillery were portrayed by Godfrey Douglas Giles, Richard Caton Woodville and Stanley Wood. A cast-iron statue of a lion was built by George Blackall Simmons in Reading and unveiled in 1886 to commemorate those who died in battle. A monument was built in the 1950s on the Maiwand Square in Kabul in commemoration of the battle by an Afghan architect Ismatullah Sarraj. A memorial was erected in central London to a remarkable canine survivor of the engagement, Bobby, the regimental mascot. Bobby was wounded during the fighting, but was spotted the following day by survivors, making his way back to the fort. Fiction. The fictional Dr. Watson, companion of Sherlock Holmes, was wounded in the Battle of Maiwand. He may have been based upon the 66th Regiment's medical officer, Surgeon Major Alexander Francis Preston. The Battle of Maiwand is also mentioned in Geoffrey Deaver's short story The Westphalian Ring. The main character, Peter Goodcastle, had served in the Royal Horse Artillery there and had turned to burglary to avenge the shoddy treatment he had suffered on his return to Britain. In the short story, he was arrested by none other than Drive Watson, but later managed to escape suspicion by outsmarting Sherlock Holmes. So the two men may have already met earlier. The battle has also been documented in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's short story The Summer.